Do you want your business to grow faster? Are you open to new and out-of-the-box ways to drive revenues and increase value? How do you imagine the most successful entrepreneurs and business leaders double, triple, or expand their businesses tenfold or more? This is a weekly podcast featuring conversations with business owners, executives, and leaders as we reveal behind-the-scenes details that give you, our listeners, the confidence to pursue your own deal-driven growth. On the show, we discuss a huge variety of deals, everything from large, complex mergers and acquisitions, capital raising, joint ventures, strategic alliances, real estate, affiliate and sponsorship deals, and more, including smaller deals that you can do without significant capital. My name is Corey Kupfer, and I've been supporting deal-driven growth for businesses for over 35 years as a successful entrepreneur, professional negotiator, and attorney. My goal is to help you strategize, plan for, find, and complete deals that will help your company grow faster. Welcome to the DealQuest Podcast. Let's get started. Danny Mizrahi founded and recently exited Contango, an Inc. 5000 and Inc. Best Workplaces company. Currently, Danny is CEO of Sunbird Messaging, a messaging app aggregator in its seed stage. Best known for putting iMessage on Android and featured in the Wall Street Journal. Danny, welcome to the DealQuest Podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So listen, in addition to that, more full bio, I got to say I've known Danny for a number of years. We're both EO Entrepreneurs Organization New York members. I am now an LA member with my move to the West Coast, but we've known each other for a while. And I will, once he gets to Sunbird, I'll talk about my involvement in that as well. But Danny, before we get into all your entrepreneurial history and your selling of a company and your, in a seed stage raising in another company and any other deal experience you have, I want to take you back to when you were a little kid, maybe 8, 10, 12 years old. What did you want to be? Because I'm guessing a serial entrepreneur and deal maker probably wasn't it back then, but you tell me.
Well, yes and no. When I think I was 17, I even have this PDF that I created. I call it my first hustle. When I was 17 years old, I bought a car with a friend from an auction. I basically had a fake name at the time, so I can spell it under a title, which was under his dad's name. So I called myself Fanny English. It was a whole convoluted story on how to just basically slang this Ford Taurus. I forgot the year. It was like a 96 Ford Taurus or something, but it was a really crazy hustle. I sold it like the day before I left for college. And again, I had to say, I'll have to say a fake name. And then she wanted my ID. And I had to say I left it in the car. And then I had to pretend to call my friend's dad. And my friend's dad was like, what are you talking about? I was like, hey, can you talk to Alice and just tell her the car's legit? Can you send her your ID? Super, super convoluted story for a 17-year-old. But, was just kind of always into buying low, selling high, hustling, right? And that didn't stop there. In college, I started a trash pickup company and a promotion agency. But I will say that my dream job when I was in my early to mid 20s, right before I started Contango, is I wanted to be an NBA basketball coach. So that's a whole, my 12-year-old dream was really kind of like my 25-year-old dream, if you want to ask me that question, right? But anyway, I digress.
Oh, that's funny. So yeah, it's funny. We have very similar backgrounds in that I was running businesses and hustling when I was a kid as well. And then, if I've told my flyer delivery business story when I was 15 and 16, many times in this podcast, so I won't tell it again, but it's that entrepreneurial spirit. Where does it come from for you? Because people ask me and they say, oh, is it, entrepreneurship in your family? And I had none of that. I don't know where it came from for me. Did you come from?
For me, yeah, it definitely didn't come from my family. My parents and my dad specifically, he's an Egyptian immigrant. And, I think his philosophy is always like, update your resume, get a job. Even after I started Contango, I remember him saying, make sure your resume is updated because, you never know if this thing's going to work out. And then I had a restaurant in Midtown and the same thing. Things seem to be going pretty well, but just make sure that resume is updated, right? But my friends' dads, a lot of my friends' dads had their own businesses. And, a lot of it, I got kicked out of 3 different summer camps by the time I was 13. So I wasn't going back to the outdated summer camp. It's just like my kids now love summer camp. But, I hated summer camp. So my first job, I was a runner on the mercantile exchange in the gold futures, auction, silver, pick on the trading floor. when I was 13 years old. That's actually where I learned the word Contango. Contango is a commodities expression. It means the future is higher than the spot or the current price. Well, that kind of commodity, my AOL free name was Contango. When I was like, my band name at one time was Contango. And then when I started the company, it was easy decision to call it Contango because the future is higher than the present. But I think just hating organized camp and like learning the hustle on Wall Street, kind of, and my friends, kind of all just fed into that.
Yeah. So the second question I asked on the podcast, usually is about somebody's first deal, whatever they can remember. I don't know if it was that car, deal. You might have mentioned it already, but if you could think back to an early deal, whatever you consider a deal, someone when you were younger or early in your career, was it that or anything else come to mind?
Well, definitely the car. It's a crazy story and it's such a convoluted story. I don't know about getting into it, but when I was younger, always like hustling, right? I just remember now that I'm thinking about Wall Street, one of my good friends was the manager at Nathan's in the Wall Street area. And I remember it was at the Seaport. And he was the manager. He said, look, I can give you a free lunch every day, but you got to pretend to give me cash and I'll pretend to give you change. Right. And I was like, awesome. So every day I'll pretend to give him cash, pretend to give him change. Obviously eating Nathan's every day is probably not the healthiest thing, but I was, 15 years old or 16 years old, or maybe I was probably like 18 years old at the time. Right. And then, when I was in college creating like a trash pickup company and a promotion agency, those were cool hustles also. And it really, made a little bit of extra money, but more importantly, was really fine tuning that entrepreneurial spirit. I was in a business frat. You want to hear something crazy? I was in a co-ed business frat in University of Maryland. Okay. Wow. Now University of Maryland is a party school and, frat row, they were like kids dying of drugs and those frats got a slap on the wrist and warning, right? When kids were like dying. Meanwhile, my co-ed business fraternity, we got kicked off campus for mental hazing. So that was actually a crazy experience because we had this pledging process, which was insane. You basically couldn't sleep for 8 weeks. You had to maintain a certain grade point average. You had to create businesses, do jobs for the brothers as part of the pledging process. I started at like 40 pledges and 12 people actually made it. It was a crazy process and it was like a 60-year-old process at the time, but that definitely was a crazy entrepreneurial experience as well. So all of these kind of, played a factor into, my first job out of college, I was a sales guy for an IT company and that started going really badly. My boss was not the best guy. He was pretty unethical and I wanted to be this NBA basketball coach. So I had a blog. My blog was I was on CBS Sports. I was on Newsday. So I had like this cool blog. And keep in mind, this is like 2005. Like there was only like a couple NBA blogs and I was one of them. And then finally I realized, and I'll tie it together, was that I love coaching. I love getting the most out of people around me. That's why I always wanted to be a basketball coach and motivating. And then I always had this entrepreneurial spirit. And then some people around me, my uncle was one of those people, was just like, just start your own IT company. You could do it way better than that guy. And then internally, I was like, I really like owning my own business. Maybe I should give it a try.
So, and that's the business you ran for some years before you exited recently. So tell us about that journey a little bit, about starting the company. And then were there any deals? I mean, did you raise any capital for that company, which I don't think you did? Did you do any other deals or did you really just build that organically and then end up selling it?
Yeah, definitely organically, definitely didn't raise money. It was a services company and most people know, Contango was what a lot of people call an MSP, a managed service provider, subscription IT support, right? For mostly small businesses, help desk, wiring, infrastructure, firewall, Gmail, Outlook, blah, 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 right? Backup, security. And yeah, I just, I built that business just based on this weird concept of having to be profitable. But I have all these other like tech companies, I'm in a tech company right now where profit, came after, a lot of the other work, right? And we're still not profitable, but that's just the nature of tech, tech startups, consumer apps, things like that. And so it was very weird for me to jump into this, but I was on the buy, I was on the buy side of Contango. When I was at Contango, I was trying to acquire small MSPs. Yes. I was looking at a lot of different small IT companies and deals and doing due diligence and signing LOIs. It just happened to be that I started Sunbird around that same time. And as soon as Sunbird really took off or flew, I guess there's an easy pun there. As soon as Sunbird started taking off, I realized, oh boy, I better put, Contango up for sale because Sunbird is such a bigger opportunity, like massively bigger opportunity than what I was working with. So I flipped the idea around and went from the buy side to the sell side and entertained, a whole bunch of different people that wanted a subscription IT company. There's a lot of roll-ups in that space, right? So, and now I'm advising a lot of people in that space in terms of, coaching them through, similar processes, et cetera.
So I definitely want to get to Sunbird for a number of reasons, but before we do, how long did you run Contango before you started looking at doing acquisitions, even though you didn't end up following through with those because of what you just said?
Yeah, Contango, I had a really interesting journey because I started off trying to go the road less traveled. All of my peers were doing subscription. I went the other route, and we were those providers that were still doing hourly project blocks of time that never expire. And then, as I was maturing a little bit and going to EO and I was in Vintage and, you read books like Walk Away Wealthy and you start thinking about what's next in my career and exit. And then when you're trying to acquire, you need to have a platform that other companies can roll into, right? Because what happened is we hit about 5 million in revenue and it was 100% organic, word of mouth. Now, don't get me wrong. I tried sales managers. I tried digital marketing. I lost millions of dollars in cold effort marketing and sales. But at the end of the day, all the relationships were really from my personal network or from clients. And getting to 5 million on networking and personal network is a great achievement. Always felt like I didn't really, I was a failure because I couldn't create cold effort marketing mechanisms. But I do believe like law firms, accounting firms, IT companies, it's a little harder to get cold business. You really do want to create sort of like what you're doing, right? You create sort of like this, expertise, that people really want to buy from you and your team, right? So that's what, I wound up doing with Contango after about, I'd say like 8 or 9 years, finally decided, let's go subscription and let's go, monthly 3-year contracts and really start to build this thing that I can bring other companies into, but at the same time, really creating a lot of value of the business. Yeah, I had one more thing and because of EO and Vistage and Traction, the entrepreneur operating system, et cetera. When I sold Contango, I was really only working in the company a couple hours a week. And that really helped. That really, really helped in terms of the exit price. And also I started a cybersecurity compliance company with a partner in Israel, during that time because I was working on the business, not in the business and really kind of, I don't want to say mastering, but doing a great job with the entrepreneur operating system, putting myself in a visionary role, always focusing on delegate and elevate.
That's great. And I want to get there. That's an important point. But, one of the things I talk about a lot on this podcast is mindset. I always like to ask my guests this. So it's, that conversation you just brought up in EO is just whether it's based upon, the books, you mentioned, obviously, Gerber's book,
E-Myth, yeah.
E-Myth, it's a big Bible, all this stuff, work on the business, not in the business. And that, and certainly removing yourself helps you for sale. But the other thing that I'm always interested in, though, because this is true of a lot of entrepreneurs, including EOs, whatever, where we get all these, we understand really well the difference in mindset between an entrepreneur and an employee, right? And we understand that because maybe we were employees we joke we're unemployable and we look at it like our employees and the challenges of the different mindset, whatever. But there's also a different mindset of a deal maker, right? So I'm always curious, even you went for X number of years building it organically. And then at some point you had a shift where you said, oh, wait, I think I may want to do acquisitions. Okay. Yeah. And then of course, you shifted gears for reasons we'll get into in a moment. What had you sort of start looking at doing deals, inorganic growth, deals as a growth method after only, focusing on organic growth for a number of years?
Yeah, well, I would say a lot is from our peer groups. I see a lot of entrepreneurs that have a services company that were like, yeah, I just acquired 2 smaller cleaning companies, 2 smaller, whatever companies. And a lot of times they were like, yeah, I just use like an SBA 7A loan, right? I can get up to $5 million at a low interest rate, payable back in whatever amount of time. Like they want you to buy more companies and acquire companies. And, so I was like, some research on that. This is really cool. You kind of use some house money, grow. But also I kept failing at inorganic growth, right? So I said, you know what? I have this incredible platform. Like Contango's platform was just a machine. I mean, just such a well-oiled machine, not because of me. Well, not because of me, but because I kept doing who, not how. Right. So, there's this book, Who Not How. There's this thing called Strategic Coach with Dan Sullivan, where, you never want to kind of learn how to do something, just find the right, who is the expert. So we brought in this like MSP consultant that totally transformed our business. Then I went after a service delivery manager that was at a $10 million MSP and brought him in and helped us reshape the service desk. Right. And then, moving a lot of the help desk to the Philippines, where my average help desk person had 1 to 2 years experience. And then all of a sudden, in the Philippines, my average help desk person had 8 to 10 years of experience. And the client didn't care where they were from. They spoke the same, they didn't, some have accents, but, I have New Yorkers with a lot worse accents than the Filipinos. Right. So that all helped a lot. And then, so just the failures of sales, marketing, the failures there. I said, you know what, let me grow through acquisition at this point and try to do like a mini roll up. It was like a mini roll up.
Yeah, love it. All right. So now we shift gears because of what happened with Sunbird, which we're going to get to in a moment. You say, oh, well, I'm not going to be a buyer. It makes sense for me to be a seller. You already, teased one of the biggest things that makes a company sellable, especially if the owner is not going to stay on, and be employed there for years. And that is creating a company that runs without you. So you did that well. What else was interesting in the sales process? Obviously, you don't have to disclose numbers or anything in particular, but, this is the first time you had sold.
Yes. Yeah. Well, my cybersecurity compliance company, I sold back to the majority owner for same, around the same time, but it was strategic. And so that was nothing, like not a real process. It was very, very friendly and fun.
So what was it, what did you learn? What was interesting about that process? What did you do well? And any mistakes, that you look back?
For the Contango one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, not really. I mean, what was interesting about that, I don't know, we have confidential.
I don't want you to disclose anything as company.
Yeah, we'll talk. Well, and by the way, I'm close with the buyer and I still have my email address. I still want to help out. I'm still getting them a ton of leads because obviously, people come to me for IT support and send them their way. But, I think what I learned was, what I learned, and this is not really related, but it is related. They will say your network is your network, right? Or your network is your network, right? Or, however you want to put it. So, I've always believed, when we first met, you probably knew me as that guy that would have breakfast with someone every day at 8 a.m. at Cucina above Grand Central, and I'd have a drink with someone every day at 4:30 at the Friars Club. May it rest in peace. That was like kind of my place to be. So every day I would always do a breakfast or drinks or, with someone or a lunch. And at those meetings, I would always focus on the 3 I's: invitation, introduction, information. So when I'm meeting with someone one-on-one, I'm learning about them. How do I send them something? Get them a lead, invite them to something, you name it. How do I give? And there's books like Never Eat Alone that talk about this topic and, the chances of building a relationship if you give first. And I always wanted to give first and I wanted to give more. So, fast forward to selling the company and I got like 10 different companies that wanted, Contango. And, they all really just looked at the numbers and sent $1. They didn't get to know me or get to know us, and it wasn't personal. I had a couple ones that were semi-personal, but just it was a numbers game, especially for the roll-ups, bigger ones. I got very, very lucky. I was, and then I used to do one-on-ones, but then as I got busier, I was doing like little groups. So I was doing a little group now at this place called Core Club. It's a fancy club in Midtown. So I'm at the Core Club and I have like 5 people. And one of my friends was like, hey, actually I know a guy who wants to buy an MSP in New York. You should meet him. And so, I'm like, cool. And, fast forward, he was the one I wanted to find, not the broker who was getting me deals and not my, network of MSPs that were introducing me to roll-ups, like, the big ones that just like, McDonald's keep acquiring, but a guy that really wanted a new foundation of a business to grow upon. And, Contango at the time and still today is like 135-star Google reviews, no 4s, no 3s, no 2s, no 1s. Processes, procedure, totally nailed. The brand is phenomenal. The meaning of the company and the team is just incredible in terms of process, culture. Like being on Eat Best Workplaces is extremely hard to do. They interview every employee. They look at your Glassdoor. They review your benefits. Like very, very hard award to win. And we kind of had it all, but it needed to be for the right buyer. And that came through networking. It didn't come through cold outreach, right? So It's just another example. I mean, I have others. I met my wife through her mom at a networking group. So not other examples of how important networking is and, getting out there and of course, giving more than you get. But that certainly played into the sale of Contango for sure.
Nice, nice. Okay, so let's, we've been pushing it off for a while here, but the reason you sold Contango and, in terms of what you're doing now, we mentioned Sunbird, just that tease of, of what it can do in terms of messaging, with Android and iPhone, but tell us about the company.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's really exciting. About 2.5 years ago, we decided to create a messaging app aggregator that puts all the apps in one app. Remember the first time you got Outlook, it was like, cool, now I can put my AOL in here. I'm, obviously showing my age, my AOL in here, my Gmail, my Hotmail, right? All in one client, they call it, all in one app, right? Sunbird is similar to that. You could put your WhatsApp, your Facebook. I mean, we don't have all the apps in there yet, but we're getting there. What we're best known for is, putting iMessage on Android, solving this green bubble, blue bubble issue, the encryption issue. There's no encryption between Androids and iPhones still, even with RCS. And by the way, most places in the world don't have this thing called RCS. So in most places in the world, you still can't do high resolution videos. You still can't do high resolution pictures. It's still not, not having any of those features, right? So when we realized we also have 2 awarded patents in the technology. My partner has been in messaging for about a decade. He has 9 awarded patents just in messaging, right? And so we very slowly, gave the app to some people in the media, but they loved it. They wrote about it. We had 37,000 people on our wait list that weekend. Then it just we started raising money and I said, whoa, this is a huge, huge opportunity. So, that's when I put the other companies up for sale and, got rid of those because, I didn't want to keep raising money and keep growing this business with anyone thinking that this wasn't my highest priority and by far the biggest opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that happens with investors. I mean, certainly when you get to more, professional investors, they're going to want to know as a founder that you're all in, right? If you're splitting your time, that's a red flag for them. So yeah, totally. Yeah. So talk to me a little bit. I mean, I will preview this, that I'm saying this, of course, totally jokingly that, like every tech startup company, it's gone like smooth from the minute one. You've raised every dollar you need at the perfect time and there's been no problems whatsoever and whatever. Like there's, I mean, all kidding aside, like, I don't know a single startup where that's really been true. The overnight successes have years of, fails and pivots and problems, beforehand, and you wouldn't have good chapters for the book if that weren't the case. But tell us a little bit about, about the journey. And listen, folks, I will reveal. So first of all, obviously this is for securities law purposes, et cetera. This is not a pitch for, to raise capital for business. Although if you're interested, you can speak to Danny. I have an investment in this company that, again, for legal reasons, I'm not making any recommendations, but I will share that I chose to invest in this company in a very early round. And, and I did so because, I mean, listen, like any tech startup, there's risk in that investment and that's, and there's going to be ups and downs or whatever. But I think what Sunbird promises to, work on solving and the results that it can get and the team it has behind it, is a good bet for the portion of money that I invested in riskier plays, right? But riskier also means bigger, potential bigger results, right? So, okay, with that disclosure, tell us a little more about that, that journey. I mean, we just went through a company you grew organically. You didn't raise any outside capital. You started looking at maybe acquisitions and you sold it. So this is a whole new game, right?
Yeah, it's been crazy. I mean, I guess, for me, we started off on fire because everyone was like contacting us, wanting to get involved, investing in the business, all out in the media. What's really crazy is that what I'm learning recently, and this is kind of the deal part of it, right? Like what we're doing now in the next step for the business. But, what I learned was when you are raising money pre-revenue, through revenue, you can raise money and everyone is just like, show me the vision, show me the dream, show me the opportunity, right? And then once you hit revenue, because now we have revenue and we started giving the act to people June 21st. And we have these incredible charts of just, subscription rates, retention rates, and, everything's like hockey stick. It's really great. But when you start revenue, then when you go to investors, it's no longer anything about passion play or big picture. It's all about numbers and results and milestones. So they say, look, we would love to get involved. We need to be at this amount of users, this amount of ARR. Like, yeah, but look, we raised this amount pre-revenue because we knew we would be, we know we could be $1 billion company. If you look at the market comps, there's a competitor of ours that just sold for $125 million. They only have 115,000 users and they had 450,000 people on their wait list. And get this, they don't even have iMessage, right? Which is a huge hook for app aggregation, especially for the 62.2 million millennials and Gen Z in the US on Instagram and Facebook. That market alone, when they came to our website to sign up, the conversion rate was 47% conversion rate on our website. That's how badly they want iMessage on Android and this app aggregation, right? Or some of them just want green bubbles so they can date. I mean, literally, that's the feedback we get. I need green bubbles so we can date, which is mind-blowing to me that this is an actual thing, but this is a thing. So yeah, the long story short is it's like, you could raise a lot of money, a lot of friends and family money. And then once you hit revenue, you got to be prepared. Like right now, we're doing this round, like we call it an insider round. It's at a low valuation to refill the bank account to hit our metrics. So then we can go to the VCs and really hit those next milestones, right?
Yeah. Let's take a break from the show for a minute so I can tell you about an incredible resource my team and I have put together for you. Secrets of Deal-Driven Growth, Creative Ways to Grow Your Business, Even in Challenging Times, is a powerful ebook that helps you take DealQuest podcast episodes and apply them to your own life and business. This is the ideal tool for anyone looking for creative ways to grow as deal makers, and you can get yours now. It's as easy as heading to coreycupfer.com/workbook and downloading your copy. While you're there, you can also consider joining our dynamic deal-driven community of founders, experts, small business owners, and entrepreneurs. Now back to the show.
So, one of the things I've said about, it's one thing, all the journeys and challenges you have as an entrepreneur in general. And when you're playing with your own money, that's one thing. But, the minute you raise outside capital, and I've done it not in my core business, but I've had real estate investment funds where I've raised outside money, and we bought buildings or did condo conversions, that kind of stuff. So, I have personal experience with taking, other people's money and being responsible for it. Talk to me a little bit about just that, general shift and the additional, some people would never do that, right? Some people just couldn't sleep at night if they were responsible for other people's money, right? And many entrepreneurs never raise outside capital. And by the way, aren't in a business that they should or could. When you tell you about more on the personal journey side, you're in a very different scenario now than you were running Contango for all those years.
Yeah, I will say now that, when I was raising almost all of the money, pre-revenue, we were just on fire. Like everything that we were trying to do, we were doing. Then all of a sudden, we went through some ups and downs. And, when I hit those down, we had this one period of time where, the app went through this period that I was, it was never concerned that we wouldn't be able to grow the app into something big. But the personal journey of raising millions of dollars from friends and family, my best friend's family gave me $1 million. Probably 10 to 15 people in EO, put in money. I'm in a YPO based networking group and, 10 of them gave me money. Right. And when everything's going great, it's like, hey, I'm going to make you all rich. Right. And then all of a sudden you go through some bumps in the road and it's like, whoa, there's two parts of it. Right. One part of it is you get scared that you might lose your friends and family money and they trusted with you. So there's this shame factor, right? I can't believe I might lose their money, And then I guess the other part of it is I'm still from the school of thought where I feel two things at once. I have small kids and I'm it's okay to feel two feelings at the same time. I feel two things at once. Part of me is I wish I never raised friends and family money because I don't like that pressure at all. I mean, it's positive pressure, don't get me wrong, but I'm so emotional with the closest people around me that generally speaking, I just get very emotional. I felt really bad during the downs. I felt great during the ups. So I felt really down, bad down. Then the other side of me is if I don't give my friends and family the opportunity to invest in this and we become the $1 billion company that we could be, how many people are going to be mad at me? Dude, why didn't you tell me we were raising money? Right? Why did you leave me out? Right? So it's really awkward feelings, to feel both at the same time. But the one thing that I did learn going through some of these ups and downs with this company is the fact that, frankly, I was starting to associate myself with my ups and downs at work and how I feel when I leave the home. And so when things are great, I felt great. And at home, I feel great. When I go through some bumps in the road, and this happened at Contango too, all of a sudden I would feel crappy going out or feel crappy at home. I mean, when you feel crappy at home, sometimes, your kids and your spouse, don't get you at your best, which is awful. So I think going through some of those tough times also helped me. And I'm not going to lie, I have a therapist. I mean, I feel like everyone should have a therapist, super healthy. And, learning a little bit about, you are not your ups and downs at work. And, you can be whoever you want to be and not, and you can compartmentalize those ups and downs at work. And if you go through some down period, you don't have to feel shame because, and I felt some shame during some down periods, but you don't have to feel that way. And by the way, what's really great is I was feeling really upset when we went through some down periods with the company. And then everyone that actually knew me and cared about me, either the investors, which is 60 people, all of them were I was like, hey man, yeah, it's tough. They're like, we don't care. We know you got this. We know, what can we do to support you? How can we help? We didn't invest in business. We invested in you. Everyone was just so supportive in my circles that that was necessary for me at the time and felt really good.
Yeah. Listen, I appreciate you being willing to share that because, people who, listen, anybody who's been on the entrepreneurial journey, whether it's in a funded company, a non-funded company, there's always these ups and downs and there's always these challenges. And it's one of the things that we love about being in an organization like EO and things like that, because you do have other people who've been there. And listen, we raised a couple of our real estate investment funds in 2007, right? Right before the Great Recession, right? So listen, we obviously went through significant challenges on some of our buildings that we invested in. And we had the same experience generally. First of all, we as an I'll speak for myself because I am one, big boys and girls, right? Understand that this risk capital is no guarantee. Understand that, I particularly, because we do a lot of work with clients who understand the journey of funded companies. If you haven't been on the verge of running out of money and trying to figure it out, or you haven't had a bump in the road, whatever, then, you're not going to be successful because that's part of the journey. I talk a lot of my EO forum mates has a robotics startup, construction robotics company. And, I think he, in a way it's comforting when he calls me, I tell him this, but in a way he's sort of getting tired of me hearing it. And I'm like, yep. Hey, listen, that's part of this is part of the journey you chose to make.
I talk to advisors, but I talk to a lot of other founders, can you walk me through when you were in a situation like this, and talk to advisors, investors who were actually in the business. And everyone all said the same thing. It was wait, so you thought, first of all, a lot of people were like, wait, so you were pitching us on this is going to be $1 billion company. And you thought it was going to happen. You weren't going to go through ups and downs. And then you read Elon's book and you read Phil Knight, Shoe Dog, and you read all these books about entrepreneurs that, slept on the floor, slept in their car, ate Franks and beans, right? You read all these stories and is this not I'm not Stepbro. This is the game, right? This is what we go through. And then I told someone we're getting low on cash, right? And people are like, oh, you and every other tech company on the planet that actually pre-election. So, and then I was like, I didn't know 95% of my job was going to be fundraising. Well, you could have freaking looked that up before you started a tech startup. A huge part of the job and, almost all of the job is fundraising, right? And it's it gets a little ad nauseum, but at the end of the day, we do have amazing investors. We have an amazing network. And most importantly, we have this incredible product and opportunity. There's no other messaging app aggregators out there in the world that you could set up iMessage on your Android with only your Android device. It's the only one. And, and the sky's the limit for us. We didn't really talk about, all the metrics, but we have a 28% conversion rate after a 7-day free trial in the app. So people download the app and 7 days later, 28% of people sign up and our churn is trending below 15%. Why? Because when someone downloads Sunbird, as soon as they open up iMessage conversations with their friends, if they leave the Sunbird app, if they don't pay that $1.99 a month, they lose their iMessage.
Right.
But we have really great stickiness there too.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I love the conversation about the journey. I love the conversation about, the upside. The interesting part, this is another thing that's true, is that, and from an investor's point of view, and listen, I say this not just to Danny, right? But obviously people who are listening in who are on this journey themselves or contemplating going on this journey of, a funded startup, funded tech startup or any kind of startup, it's helpful to know this is part of the game. And the truth is that as a founder, when things are challenging, when you have those people with money, you are not concerned or upset in any way. It means that you don't care. I mean, like as an investor, you actually, not that you want, your founders to be, you want them to try to have a healthy mental state, keep moving forward and be happy. But at the same time, if they weren't worried at all, they didn't have any concern at all, they weren't looking at it and say, oh, I gotta, you want them to care about your money and care about you as an investor, right? So the fact that, that's also a very good sign. It means that, Danny cares, right? That it's not just for himself, but he cares for the investors,
Figuring out that balance between not letting it affect you personally and making sure you give it your best out there and, and the trust and the people around you. It is a very tough, tightrope, right? Walking that tightrope is hard and it's something that I'm continuously learning about, right? Like, how do I stay as passionate about entrepreneurship and growth and learning and building this $1 billion business without feeling like crap during the downs, right? It is very, very difficult. But, I think at the end of the day, a guiding light, like Polaris, true north, whatever you want to call it, is doing your best, right? Doing your best and being honest, doing your best and being honest and focusing on doing the right thing and just trying to. And that, for me, if I could do that, I know I can sleep well at night. And, some people will be upset and some people won't care. And, it affects you and sometimes it doesn't affect you. But at the end of the day, I think that's the only kind of guiding light.
Yeah. Love that. Love that. All right. Before I go to my final two questions, anything else you want to share about Sunbird, about the app, about the capital raising journey or anything else around deals?
Yeah. Look, we're doing a round right now. We're trying to refill the bank account to hit the metrics that VCs want us to hit. In fact, I want to blow past those metrics to get to self-sustainability, net profitability before we raise another round. We don't need that much. We're raising, basically like $1 million. We're doing it again, friends and family, word of mouth. We're a little early for VCs because of where we are in the user journey. But the metrics, if you saw the charts, I think you've seen the charts as an investor, but if someone saw the charts, they would see, wow, everything is hockey stick, everything is rocket ship. So, we just want to keep this journey going. We know we have something special. So, and then if you're passionate about app aggregation, putting all your messaging apps in one app, or you're passionate about green bubbles, blue bubbles, something like that, give me a call. I'm happy to show you the business. This is a huge opportunity and you get it, right?
Love it. Yeah. Yeah. Listen, there's so much I think that's exciting about this company. And I appreciate you being super honest and open about the journey. And, the other thing that's, I think, an important point that you mentioned is that, one of the things that people who haven't been through before don't understand is that, there are to really understand that there are certain types of investors that are appropriate or even interested at different phases, right? There's a reason why, you hear about friends and family, pre-seed, seed, series A, series B. It's come to the point where there's there's labels on each of these, and not that every company goes through every single one of those stages exactly, but in concept, there are different types of investors for different times. And, to have sort of this need to bridge capital, be able to get to the point where you can hit the metrics where more professional investors, right, venture capital investors would be interested, is also a very common phase for a company. And frankly, a place where some companies, that's where they're gone, right? Because they don't get that capital, be able to get over that hump to prove it to a level where they can get professional capital, and then obviously the ones that can, that could make a big difference. So, that's another lesson for folks who are doing this is that, you really have to understand the types of investors that invest at different stages of a company and, and then obviously how you get that. And that's what Danny's working on right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Well,
so Danny, all right, if people do want to find out more about whether it's the app and the product itself to be a user, or if they are interested in speaking to you about, and finding out more about, being involved in other ways as an investor or other ways, where should they go?
Yeah, I mean, I think the easiest thing to do is probably just put in my name, Danny Mizrahi, in LinkedIn. It should come right up, or Danny Mizrahi Sunbird, and in Google, I'm sure my LinkedIn will come up, stuff like that. And then just reach out to me and just make sure that you mentioned that, you heard me on DealQuest, only because there's a lot of spam in LinkedIn. So it's just hard to sort through that sometimes. So I think that would be a good place to start. And yeah, I mean, I love having conversations about what we're doing here. And if anyone wants to get involved, we don't take shortcuts. We would do the full journey of what it looks like to be a part of our team here. And it's our honor to do that.
Great. And if people just want to find out, what's the website? If you just want to see
just sunbirdapp.com.
There we go.
Yeah, sunbirdapp.com. If you want to put in Google, put in Goodbye Green Bubble Wall Street Journal. There's a really great article about us on the Wall Street Journal. You can put in Goodbye Green Bubbles, WSJ. I'm sure it'll come up. So that's a fun way to learn more about us too.
Excellent. Danny, my final question on the podcast is always about my highest value in life, which is freedom. And for me, that means everything from freedom around the world for all people, from oppression to why I've been an entrepreneur for decades and haven't had a boss. What does freedom mean to you, and how does it impact your life and business?
What does freedom mean to me? Well, I think there's internal freedom and external freedom, right? So I think internal freedom means being really confident in yourself. Like we talked about earlier, just doing your best and doing the right thing and being kind. Internal freedom also to me means I've done a lot of studying on happiness, and, there's certain pillars of happiness. And so like you mentioned, charity is a pillar of happiness, and community is a pillar of happiness. Guess what's not a pillar of happiness? Money. Money is not a pillar of happiness, right? So, freedom. But then with that, the flip side of that coin is, you do want to make enough money to support your family and buy things that, potentially you want to buy. And of course, you want to make enough money to give back, to others. And sometimes freedom is financial freedom, right? And, having sold another company and putting a little bit in the piggy bank in terms of some more freedom freedom in financial also allows you to try other things and, create other opportunities. And, I always envision myself as having hundreds and, maybe thousands of employees at one point, because I love coaching. So, that would give me the opportunity to do that, coach more people and motivate more people and preach the core values more, So I guess that's what freedom comes to me when you put me on the spot.
I love it. No, that's great. Listen, I always want to get people's their first answer that comes to mind, and it was a great one. So, Danny, thanks for being such a great guest on the DealQuest podcast.
No, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks, Corey.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of DealQuest, where we help you understand how deal-driven growth can be your ticket to freedom. I want to invite you to a unique way to tap into the wisdom and experience of the DealQuest community. The Deal Den is a place where entrepreneurs, high-level executives, and business leaders come together, support each other's growth and success, and share what's working best, as well as what challenges we are facing right now. You will get input not only from me, but from all of our members. We collaborate and serve each other. To join us, go to corykupfer.com/dealden. I'll see you there. I'm Corey Kupfer. Until next week, wishing you the freedom and financial prosperity that I know your DealQuest will bring.